is a light that lives within you, a quiet strength that's always there. Beyond the fear, beyond the stories, a love that's waiting everywhere. You are more than all you've carried, more than every wound you've known. Life is gently calling to you to remember and come home. Take a breath, open your heart. There is beauty waiting here. Every moment is inviting something beautiful to appear. You are love, you are joy, you are present, you are free. Every step you take encouraged brings you home to you. You are whole, you belong. Love is a higher law. Come alive, come alive. The miracle is who you are.
Hey, good day, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We're starting like 10 minutes late. And it's so funny because the title for today's episode is You're Not Broken. But I thought my sound was broken, but it turned out I was on mute. So we're trying to figure out a sound issue, the tech issue. And then it turned out that it was actually my button was on mute. So anyways, you're not broken. That's the theme for today, and quite a beginning to that theme because it wasn't broken. I just needed to press a different button. So welcome to episode 9, season 1, You're Not Broken. I was reflecting on what I was going to talk about today, and I pretty much come up with the themes like just the night before. I just sort of see what's in the current of my life and what I'm seeing in the world and how to integrate that into the show. And this last week I led a retreat with 3 women, and it usually only do 1-to-1 retreats, but these 3 women wanted to all have healing work while they were here on a getaway. And so I went, okay, I'll do it. And it was quite interesting because I was seeing like a pattern in all 3, which then I could connect to the patterns of pretty much everyone I've worked with and even me. And it seems obvious, but I gained a different insight in it. And first, I'm just going to invite a deep breath in, because we're going to go into why you're not broken, even if you think you're broken. And even if you think the people in your life are broken. Nobody's broken. We're just interrupted. So, spending this time with these women in the retreat, it brought me to put some pieces together in a new clarity. And this is how I understand life. Truth evolves. What we know evolves. It doesn't end because I know this. It actually branches into deeper insights and deeper context and deeper nuance. And that's the beauty for me of life, is that I'm always growing and always open to deepen and always come more alive in what life has given me to look at as knowing, right? It's understanding, it's frequency. So the key thing is that what I witness, and I had it in myself too, is that there's this false belief that there's something wrong with us. We think there's something wrong with us, or we need to get rid of these patterns, or, I need to stop feeling this, or, I'm still afraid. Why am I still afraid? I shouldn't be afraid. Or I know that worry doesn't help me, so why do I still worry? Or why can't I just let this go? Why am I still being triggered by this? And we have really learned how to be hard on ourselves in our life and the way things are framed in the world, versus, just realizing that we're not here to remove things, right? Because especially in spiritual places, it's like everybody's got a list of what everybody needs to change and what they need to change. And I'll share about my list later on, right? But there's this idea that we're always supposed to be different than who we are. So we negate what is. And when we negate or smooth over or run around what actually is, right? Because if I'm angry and I say, well, I shouldn't be angry, but the fact is that I am. So it's there. So I need to go into my anger. I need to meet it. What is there, right? So instead of removing my anger, I need to meet it. Instead of removing the fear or removing my blocks or removing my limiting beliefs or getting rid of the ego, that's a big one, or I got to release and clear that. These are all the lingo that's out there, right? What life has taught me is that we're not here to exile any of the parts of ourselves. And quite honestly, we've already exiled enough parts of ourselves through the growing from our childhood to adulthood. There's so much we left behind as um, uh, looking to belong, looking to feel like we can be a part of life and others and be welcomed, right? So take a deep breath. And I'm just going to invite you to think about, where do you exile parts of yourself already? What parts of you do you feel frustrated with? What parts of you do you think shouldn't be what they are? Right? And so I want to ask you, right? What if some of the things that you've been trying so desperately to get rid of are actually just calling you back into relationship with yourself? Because I did this for years. It was so funny. In my 30s, I actually went to a counselor and I had this long list of everything that was wrong with me, everything that I thought was wrong with me. And I really felt it, and I was in anguish and pain. These are the things wrong with me. I don't want to be this anymore. What's wrong with me? And I shared it with the counselor, and he looked at me. He says, there's nothing wrong with you. He says, look at your awareness. You see yourself in that thing. And then it's just about, finding new pathways, and I remember thinking, what? And he wouldn't even see me. He said, you don't need to come to me. So he was a good counselor because, there are many that say, well, oh, come, buy my package and do this. But he saw that I already had awareness. The reason why most people go to counselors is because they don't have awareness. But he said, I had so much awareness. He says, I don't need him, so he didn't accept me as a client. And I left there. I remember riding my bike home and I'm like, but I feel all this stuff, right? I feel I still have triggers, I still have emotions, I still have anger, and well, what do I do with it? So, but that gave me information to say, okay, well, what else do I have to look at? And it was confusing, but it was also liberating because suddenly there was a part of me that had a validation that, you're all right. There's nothing wrong with you. There's just growth and learning to happen, right? So in Germany, I trained in trauma therapy in terms of body work and how to release body trauma, the memories, the held energies, right? So I had a lot of knowledge of that element, the spiritual element. I learned that the body is the house of the soul. So when you massage the body, you're not just going in there to tear the tissues to get circulation. You're actually creating a space so that deeper tensions can release so that the soul can embody more fully. So I've always understood that, right? But I still had the question in me, like, well, what's wrong with me? Why I should know all this? Because of course I did so much studying. I was, energy work for many years and shamanism and everything like that. And yes, my world was like my inner world was expanding, but I felt like I still had this bubble around me that it just stretched with me. And yes, there was space, but it just couldn't break through that bubble, right? And getting caught in this idea, I need to change, I need to be different, it creates a kind of a mental madness in us. What is our life? We're fixing, correcting, fixing, correcting, fixing, correcting. Well, where's the living happening? Where, if we're constantly nipping and tucking and contorting who we truly are, the uniqueness of who we are, to fit in a homogenized idea of what every human being should be in order to be a good human being, in order to fit in, right? So during the retreat, one of the principles I share in Hawaii is makia, right? Focus. Where my attention goes, my energy flows, and that's what grows, right? So I was sharing this with the woman too, and showing her, how her the things that she was trying to change, they were natural. her body and her nervous system were doing something to protect her. It needed to be what it was until now, until she could see it, the trauma block that she was naming, right? But what was happening is she was suffering twice, because there's the actual experience, right? And then there's the experience she's having of saying, I shouldn't have this experience. So look at that contrast. And this is what I've witnessed is the majority of our suffering. Then beating yourself up. Yes, exactly. Right. And gosh, I was a master at beating myself up. I put those tools away, and I've given them away. Don't do that anymore. If anything comes back, I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, let's not do that. Right. So when we have that conflict, I'm in this experience, but I shouldn't have this experience. So just feel that in your body, that the contradiction, the incoherency that comes up. It's so easy to blame ourselves, and the world gives us every reason to blame ourselves, right? The world tells us it's all our fault. And yes, we have a component of frequency of a reality. We're in relationship with that and whatever that problem is, but it doesn't mean we're broken. And that's what I was sharing with this woman, and what life has shown me. It's about seeing a whole picture of ourselves. And okay, these pieces here may not be in alignment, or it's like a puzzle. I'm trying to put the pieces together, but the picture's there. The wholeness of me is still there. It's just a matter of me engaging these interruptions differently, engaging them from the point of view that, okay, what's looking to evolve here, right? So neuroscience changed me, because I started being able to understand what my biology was doing. And that's why I'm so strong. I'm not a neuroscience, but I have read and I've applied everything I've ever learned about neuroscience to my own self. And that's where that's where my authority is, because I've used the techniques, I've used the knowledge, and it's changed me. I am no longer who I was, yet I'm still the same. My essence is the same, but my nervous system, brain has rewired itself. And that's why I keep neuroscience, because when even just the basics of it, I finally made sense to myself. And that's the biggest conflict. We don't make sense to ourselves. We see our contradictions. We see all this stuff going on, like me with my list. I saw all my contradictions, but I saw it as there being something wrong. And it wasn't something wrong. It was just something that, having that awareness is the first step to changing and growing into something new. Like last week, I talked about the in-between, the cocoon, right? So there's phases in our life that we start to see these things, but we're seeing them not to judge ourselves and keep us in a box. We're seeing them so that we can evolve them and move forward. Like later on, talk about upgrading your iOS system. So the old script, the old program doesn't work, and I need to upgrade my system with new knowledge, new wisdom, new tools, so that I can be available for the life that's available for me now, right? Just like if you have an old iPhone, if you don't get the upgrades, some of your apps, you can't even open them anymore, right? It's like a good metaphor for ourselves too, right? If we don't upgrade ourselves, if we don't, engage that journey of personal inner evolution, then what happens is we lose access to parts of ourselves, right? So a big thing that was for me is understanding and seeing that, with the nervous system, it lives in a different time zone than our cognitive self. If we had a trauma happen 30 years ago and it never had its resolution, it never had its release from the body, it never had integration, then it's actually still now. Our cognitive mind has all this room of movement, but the nervous system is just the perpetual now. And now is always now in the nervous system. Whatever has not been resolved, it's now. And that's why you can have a trigger, and it's like you're right back there, wherever that experience 20, 30 years ago. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense if you look at things through a spiritual lens, or the norm lens. But if you look at it through a biological nervous system lens, it makes total sense. And that's what I want to invite through this episode, to help give you information that can help you make sense to yourself, right? Because when I understood that, it's like, oh, all right, so I'm not broken, I'm just interrupted sometimes, I'm misaligned sometimes. Something old is being activated, right? Hashtag broken. Yeah, right. And then instead of saying, how do I get out of this or how do I get rid of this? My question became, what's really here? What is life asking me to meet in myself right now? Right? Because we're here to meet and know life. We're not here to just be robots, just doing whatever, our patterns tell us or the world tells us. We're all here to be our unique self, right? So emotions feel so much bigger in those moments. And that's why we need the breath. And that's why we need to just have the knowledge, because knowledge creates orientation, right? When I understand that my nervous system functions in this way, and I understand that my limbic brain takes over because it's been in the driver's seat for millions of years in our development. So, of course, it's in the driver's seat. Our frontal cortex is really new. And the only way that our frontal cortex can grow is if we engage it. And the way we engage it is in moments of trigger where we take the breath, we harness the moment between, we pause, and then we go into reflection and awareness, observation. And when we do that, our limbic brain already settles down because our frontal cortex is taking the driver's seat. And then our biology changes. And we do this like a gazillion times before the new pattern, new pathway is complete. And what gave me a lot of hope when I was learning about all this is that expression that says, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? We usually use that, say, well, if you don't use your gifts, if you don't use what you know, you lose it. Okay, that's one thing. But also, if we don't use our old neural pathways that brought us to the pits of despair and hell and on earth, right? If we stop using those neural pathways, they also die off literally in our brain. Like, I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, really? Like, I can build a whole new neural network just through taking action and redirecting my focus every time a trigger wants to take me over down my familiar route. I actually have a power that I can change that. I have choice. I'm not just at the mercy of my nervous system. My nervous system can change. Oh my goodness, that was revolutionary for me. That just set me free, right? And so having that kind of knowledge is an orientation that when I get triggered, I already know, okay, I'm cognitively impaired. I'm not broken. I'm interrupted in this moment. There's a part of me looking to come back home. There's a part of me looking to integrate an experience I didn't have the space or time or capacity to integrate when the experience happened. Or maybe I've, looked at many layers of that, but now I'm reaching the core. So all of that kind of thinking gives me a direction to move when something happens. But if I think I'm broken, and if I say I'm stuck and I got to get rid of things, my nervous system is listening to that and saying, oh my God, I'm stuck. Oh my God, oh no. And then it will keep perpetuating that pattern. And that's why what we think is so important. What we focus on is so important. I can acknowledge what I'm experiencing and still move forward. Acknowledging what I'm witnessing, experiencing doesn't mean everything else that I am is written off, but that's what we tend to do. That's what I did. Right? So, okay. So, oftentimes it triggers there and you're like, oh my God, why am I feeling that? I shouldn't feel that. It's just this tiny little thing. It's out of proportion with the situation, right? So then instead of being upset with ourselves, then we say, okay, what's underneath this? Where is this familiar? Where do I feel it in my body? What is this touching, right? How old does this feel? How old was I? What is it, my teenager self? Is it my child self? Was it me in my 20s? What part of me needs to come back into relationship right now that this trigger is inviting me to come back into relationship with? Because remember, for me, triggers are doors, triggers are portals. Triggers open the possibility of deeper relationship with self and life and others when we know how to navigate them. Right? So my triggers didn't just magically disappear. I was still, I still trip up. I still get afraid sometimes. I still have had moments of despair. Those are all normal emotions. What's not normal is when we live there, right? And each moment of fear or despair, when I engage it the way I'm describing here, I move and I grow and I evolve. And I have more clarity and I have more strength and more evidence of my capacity to meet those moments without losing myself completely. So take a deep breath. So now things can't bring me to my knees like they used to. I might fall to my knees for a moment, but it's that living that authentic feeling of that moment. It's true. And so this is what I guided each of these women through, is how to, instead of like speaking over or around what they're feeling, to enter what they're feeling, to meet it. Because until we're actually in the feeling, we can't change it. I can't transform my trigger outside of my trigger. I can analyze it, I can understand it, I can, I can have like a total map of seeing, like I had with my list. I had my list, right? But having that list, it it got in my way so much. And when I didn't have the nervous system understanding, but when I have the nervous system understanding, then I can say, oh, okay, and I can give direction. Oh, I'm caught in this again. Okay, let me find my way through. Right? So it's about claiming that power that we have in the moment, and not as a hyperbole or not as a pseudo spiritual bypassing, but really here now. I have a capacity, and this is what I hope to inspire in you, and to bring alive, right? Because I was never really lost. I had lost relationship with myself. As these women, there was a place they had lost relationship with themselves in the pain. Right? So take a deep breath with that. I feel like I lost a tiny bit of a thread because I got all in there, but I think I got it. Right? So the key was inviting them to be with what really was, rather than skipping over it. And one of the things you can observe in yourself is when you're asked something, right? Where do you speed up your answer to just get it over with, right? And we all do this because there's discomfort, and we don't want to experience discomfort, and we don't want to show our discomfort, and we don't want to show our vulnerability. But actually, when we do let ourselves be vulnerable, and then we slow it down, then we can get into the, don't skip over anything, have to deal with the good and the bad. Exactly. So, but that's a survival tendency. So again, it's not wrong. Our system is doing what it knows to do to keep us safe. But that's our limbic brain. If we're wanting to have a more consciously directed life, we have to exercise our frontal brain. We have to make a different choice. We have to go the opposite way of the current that wants to take us down, right? And it's actually, it seems like our body's failing us, but our body just only knows to do that as a way to keep us safe too. So we're re-educating ourselves and re-educating our biology. So take a deep breath with that. Work through difficulties, enjoy the good times. Yeah. And the thing is right, a lot of times, thank you for saying that, because a lot of times people, in my life, they'd say, oh, well, that's positive thinking, and that, positive thinking doesn't work. And I'm like, no, it's not about positive thinking. It's about effective thinking. Is my thinking effectively helping me to meet, experience, and move through what I'm, experiencing and evolve it into something? Or is it keeping me stuck? So I changed the word. It's not positive thinking. It's effective thinking, developing the capacity to think in such a way that I can bring myself through those situations, right? And in that, also keep my eye on what's good, because there's always a lot of good available. Both realities, the pain and the love, can exist simultaneously. The confusion and clarity, I can have clarity in this area, but I have confusion in this area. So to honor the good and the bad as reflections of what's natural in life. We are in a world of contrast. But if I focus only on the bad, then that's all that's going to grow, right? Makia, where my attention goes, my energy flows, and that's what grows, right? So what I was sharing with these women too is to take a look and think about that. Maybe what we sometimes call brokenness is actually just the experience of a fragmented part of ourselves looking to come back home. So the trigger's there as the catalyst for us to meet ourselves. So, and to bring about our uniqueness, right? So my uniqueness was often always, the thing got rejected, right? So I've always been a deep thinker. I've always been a dreamer. I've always had a spiritual connection that other people around me in the world I grew up in as a kid didn't have. I've always been willing to change my thinking when new information shows me something more, because that's how we grow. Again, like I said in the beginning, truth expands. here's the truth I covered, and then now it's, oh, there's all these different branches of expansion and context and nuance when we're open to see that. So, but that wasn't always welcomed. I was so often told, oh, you change your thinking too much, you think too much, you're too much, you're too intense. Like, oh my God, all these things, you're weird. One person even said, you're from another planet. I don't get you. I'm like, oh my God. But at that time, all of that in my young self, it really impacted me. Now it's like, it's a compliment. Good. It's okay. But in those periods, it impacted me. Right. And so there were a lot of rooms that I just wasn't being seen. And when you're repeatedly reflected back to yourself through other people's discomfort and projections and limitations, especially when you're young, you start believing it. You start believing maybe I'm the problem. And so you shrink. I shrunk, we edit ourselves, we stop expressing fully. We learn that in this room I can say this much, but in this room I can't. So we disconnect from something that was once completely natural before somebody told us it wasn't. So take a deep breath. And there's one experience for me that was huge that I just never have forgotten. And it was when I was about 12, and there was like a talent show at our school. And, I was bullied in that school. So for me to even get on that stage, I have to say to my past self, good for you, girl. Because like that was put myself in. So I had this beautiful purple bodysuit with white sequins. And then I had this pink scarf that I was going to pull out of my bodysuit. I was dancing to Jake Isle Band, Flamethrower, I think it's called. Yeah, it was a very cool song. I love that song. And, at that era, everybody just did structured jazz routines. So I was kind of ahead of my time again there already. I just improvised. I had done jazz classes, but I found them too confining. So I just let my body rip, right? And I was flying around the stage, so in ecstasy, expressing myself, having the greatest time. Couldn't wait for the moment for Flame to pull out my hot pink scarf and like, yeah, and wave it around and everything. And I was just so ecstatic, right? And I was like, wow, I came off the stage feeling, yeah, that was amazing. I feel so good. Everybody must think I'm amazing, right? And then I go down and I go to sit in the front row. And then one of the students, her name, I remember her, Kathy Saddleberger. She looked at me with like this look of disgust and disdain. And she says, well, that didn't make any sense. Oh my God. My whole, the color drains out of your body. My whole body just sunk. And it blocked me for years. I stopped dancing. Because of one comment. But of course, there's lots of bullying behind the scenes. So it was like that comment was like the seal on the tomb of my creativity of dancing. Right? So then after that, I made up an excuse that I actually ended up believing it. I lied to myself so deeply that I believed it, that I hurt my knee. And so therefore I wasn't dancing anymore. Look at that. Another time I sang. I always wanted to be a singer. So I sang and I got laughed at. All the kids laughed at me. Said, oh, I don't remember what they said exactly, but they said it was horrible and don't even try to go there or whatever, right? So again, I stopped. I drew some artwork that I really liked. And again, it was kind of abstract, like what abstract art is now, that didn't exist back then, right? Somebody told me again, so that doesn't make sense. What is that supposed to be, right? I stopped painting. These 3 creative outlets. I stopped. And for years, my story was, I'm not creative. I can't sing. I can't dance. I can't even draw a stick person. But none of it was true. I mean, if you look at my life now, I didn't just suddenly develop creativity. I accessed it. So it was never gone. It was buried. And now look at my life. I look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, I sing. I have like 3 albums. I dance. I develop my own expressive dance therapy. I paint. I drum, taught myself to play the flute, I write, I've written books, I bake, I love baking. My cinnamon buns are to die for, or maybe to live for. I change people's lives. They can't eat regular cinnamon buns anymore after mine. I'm really good at that. I speak 3 languages, you know, I'm always creating. And it's so funny because some people, when I share what I do, they're like, "Oh my God, you're like a Renaissance woman." And I thought, I like that. That feels kind of fun, right? Because I love that era of Renaissance. It was the era of creativity. But none of that creativity suddenly appeared. You know, it it was buried in me all these years until I did my first expressive dance class. Then my dancing came out in my early 20s, and then I got back in my body, and then I was at a goddess workshop, and she played a crystal singing bowl, and my voice opened, and my friend said, "Oh my God, you got to record that." Right. So, and drawing, my sister was an artist, so I was always intimidated because she was the best artist, and so that was also added to my block. But then I did a 1 hour art course like 2 years ago just to get the basics of a technique. And now I have like a series of 13 paintings that I've made. It's incredible, my frequency art. So that's the evidence I want to say. I believed I was broken, but I wasn't broken. I was just interrupted. The authenticness of me was interrupted in its expression, right? So what I see as our healing journey is you remember those old televisions. The younger generation might not even know it unless you've seen it in movies, but televisions where you had the rabbit ears on the TV, right? And if the picture got fuzzy, you'd have to stand up and, and move around. And sometimes you get your kid to just stand just right in the place where the clarity came through, right? And you're like, nope, nope, just a little more there. And the thing is the program never disappeared. The program was always broadcasting, even if our screen turned static there. So there was interference in the signal. And that's how I approach healing. It's just interference in the signal. How do we clear the interference? How do I identify the interference so that we can, improve our rabbit ears? Or now we got Wi-Fi, right? But changing the idea of this is what I'm broken, I have to change this, I have to get rid of this doesn't work, and the blaming and the judging, to exchange that for, okay, what are my rabbit ears needing to be more fine-tuned so I can be me? Because we're not here to get rid of ourselves, evolve, to upgrade, to update, moment by moment by moment, just like in life. Right? It's like upgrading our software. If my phone gets an operating system update, then I can connect to everything, right? It doesn't mean that the old version was bad or evil, right? Because I need a new upgrade. It's just like, okay, that old system brought me here, and now I need a new system so I can access more of me. So take a deep breath with that, right? So there's always a new available upgrade for our thinking, for how we see ourselves, how we are in the world. And my invitation is to inquire into it. What is looking to be upgraded in me, right? What part of me has served me, patterns have served me till now, but it doesn't. So I'm not trying to destroy the old patterns. I'm trying to understand them and then evolve them, right? Take a deep breath. That's very different from thinking something is wrong with me, right? Can you feel that? Just check in with yourself. Where is something popping in, right? That has that feeling for you, right? Maybe some of your patterns are simply running old operating systems, beliefs, which is what it is. They made sense when they were built and created based on the little bit of knowledge and capacity that we had when we were little, right? Maybe they protected you from something, right? Maybe we need to expand our view and understanding of life and ourself in order to meet that version of ourself again that got buried underneath all the shoulds and shouldn'ts and what's accepted and what's not, and what's normal and what's not, right? So that we can evolve it. So when I was 13, I read Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. And one of the things, most common quotes is follow your bliss. But one of the other pieces that stayed with me, I think as like an operating system in the background, I didn't always think of it, but somehow when I read it, it's sort of like it landed in a part of my biology. And I think that's why I was able to make it through so many horrendous experiences that most people would break underneath, right? And I think it's the orientation. He talked about the hero's journey. And the hero doesn't have a life without adversity. We're all here to be our own hero and heroine. We're all on our own hero's journey, right? It's not the story of lack of adversity. It's difficulty, it's uncertainty. There's loss, there's the unknown, right? There's the things that we don't know how we're going to make through this from this moment to the next moment. That's all the hero's journey. And then something is called forth in us to meet it, to rise to the challenge, like Mission Impossible. Should you accept this mission, right? So if we choose to accept it as an invitation to evolve ourselves, to upgrade our inner OS systems, right? iOS systems, right? So then, you know, if we look at all the stories that humans have ever told that inspire us, you know, they don't have just a simple, easy life. They went through horrible stuff, like Viktor Frankl for me. He's the one who inspired me in my 20s, right? If he could go through all he went through and still love humanity, well, I've got no excuse. That's what I told myself. And so that's why I committed even more to the path of healing. But it takes time. It's not just overnight. Knowing is not transformation. Knowing is the beginning of transformation. And then we just embody that knowing again and again and again and again until we've rewired that neural network and the old one doesn't work anymore and we're on a new program, right? So, imagine, going to a movie and thinking, okay, I absolutely hope nothing bad happens to this person for the next 2 hours, that they have no challenges, right? Well, we wouldn't watch the movie. We go because we see the challenges, right? We see the adversity in relationships or any kind of action movies or war movies, or it's the same plot in all of them. All of the movies reflect the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about. There would be no movie if there's no adversity, no discovery, no loss, no reclaiming, no becoming. So think about that for a minute. When you're watching movies, you're watching because you're seeing that hero's journey, and it's speaking to a deep part of you that knows it intrinsically. So what if you start watching those movies differently and saying, well, where am I my own hero, right? And, one of our biggest problems, and I always repeat this because it's important to remember, is we think we shouldn't have problems. We think there shouldn't be trauma. We think there shouldn't be contrast. But I can't honestly look at this world and pretend that it doesn't exist and that it's not a part of our curriculum of learning. It's how we engage it. It doesn't mean I want trauma. It doesn't mean I'm glorifying surviving or pain, but I'm just trying to always find a usefulness for it so that I can make my life better through it rather than worse. And that's the pivot. And I really believe that somehow that time when I read Joseph Campbell's book, it was like my soul went, that's a keeper. And it was operating in my unconscious all my life, even when I didn't think of it, even when I forgot it. But somehow, because there's truth and truth resonates. And when we hear truth, we feel it and we know it, right? So this world contains pain, loss, challenge, love, beauty, joy, creation. It's all of it. That is aliveness, that life. Some experiences can stop us. Some can interrupt us for years. But they can also become catalysts that move something. And that's how I understand these experiences. If I look at humanity now where we are, I think, well, how could we be anywhere else? Because we haven't been living in our authentic nature and authentic connection to life for centuries. And because of that, there's been a lot of harm. And so each one of us is doing our part to correct that harm, right? To evolve the limbic system of survival into a more cohesive capacity to live and embody our humanity and our soul at the same time without degrading into the violence and the harm. But how can we be anywhere else? Look at our history. We're like, how can people be this horrible? Well, I know why they can be horrible, because we've got centuries of trauma. centuries of not even understanding what emotions are, how to relate with each other. There's been no guidebook, right? So naturally, you don't train a dog, it's not going to know what to do and what not to do. We're not trained. We're not trained with that wisdom and understanding, right? So take a deep breath with that. So my own traumas eventually led me back into creativity because I needed expression. It's not because I'm talented. People say to me, "Oh, you're so talented." It's like, I don't feel like I'm talented. I needed expression. I needed movement. I needed music. I needed dance. These were things that were my lifeline to life, right? So the very things that I had stopped doing actually became the doorways through which I found myself again, and that I actually activated those gifts, right? So this is the whole understanding of relationship. I was not broken. I was out of sync in relationship with myself. I lost relationship with those parts of me. They're still there. They were always there, right? So take a deep breath with that. So Joseph Campbell helped me have a different relationship to life by seeing the hero's journey, right? It gave me orientation. Spirituality gave me a relationship to something larger than reality immediate in front of me, so I could feel something more, right? Then there was the relationship within myself inside that journey, because how I relate to myself while I'm moving through the challenges and changes, it transforms the experience completely. If my orientation is there's something wrong with me, then every difficult situation becomes more evidence of that prosecution. See? For the prosecution to say, yep, there's something wrong with you, something wrong with you. Another trigger, another fear, another failure. I knew I was broken. But if my orientation becomes I'm in relationship with myself through an unfolding life, an unfolding adventure of discovery, working through the paradoxes, learning to know myself, then I can become curing. What is this touching? What's asking for relationship? What wants to evolve, right? What's trying to come back into expression? So in these 3 days, my phrase I always say is come alive, right? My recent song release is come alive. I did a book called Come Alive, and it deepened for me because I saw even clearer. It's not just come alive, it's coming alive to the uniqueness of you. Because when I reflected on all the times when I felt depressed or sad or lost, it was because I was not in relationship with my authentic self anymore, with my uniqueness. My uniqueness had been nipped and tucked away. So take a deep breath with that. You're not here to become me. You're not here to become anybody else. You're not here to become some spiritual ideal. You're not here to become the version your family is comfortable with. And you're not here to remove everything messy until you're finally acceptable. You're here to be you in all of the phases and stages of being human and becoming. The unique expression of the life that is moving through you, that wants to create through you. Every single human being has had a path that nobody else has had. Look at that beauty. Nobody's had my exact path. Nobody's had yours either. So this isn't about becoming a standardized kind of healed human being, which in the spiritual scene, that's often what is depicted. This is what being a healed person looks like. It's false. I'm sorry. It's false. A whole human being means I can be with what is, as it is, and I can move with it and find a way to create something good through it. That's for me what spirituality is. It's not bypassing. It's not becoming this perfect saint. The moment I become that, I'm not going to need a body anymore. I'll go. As long as I'm here and I'm doing my numbers every morning, like everybody, I'm a human being with a nervous system, an infinite being in a finite body. And then, yeah, there's going to be work to do. There's going to be moments to meet. But how I meet them is what counts, right? So some relationships are capable of meeting every dimension in us. Some of them are not, and that's okay. Not everybody has to meet everything of us. But what matters is that I don't leave myself when I enter a room that doesn't see me. I need to be home with me, that I don't abandon the part of myself inwardly just because it doesn't belong in that particular room or with that particular person. And that's where we get lost. It's okay. I know I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I understand that now. Before I thought, why doesn't everybody love me? Well, I get it now. I understand because I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay. but I no longer identify myself with the person who doesn't see me, which is what I used to do. I gave other people outside of me more authority over who I was than my own inner authority and knowing. And that is a really painful dance. And I was there for a very, very long time. Thankfully, I'm not anymore. But this is why I understand what I understand. So that's the difference. So the SoulsSpective for this week, I'm going to leave you with something I wrote in my journal here a long time ago. I think it might have been from a this is a journal I made for myself way back when, all my writings. And this may have come from Louise Hay, or I don't know if I created it from being inspired by her, but I wrote it in German, but here it's, I love and accept myself. I look at what I do with eyes of love, and I am in safety, as a mantra, as an affirmation to explore for this week, right? Because it's really true. To sit with those, and they help me. These affirmations, they brought me through. So affirmations are not woo-woo. They work when we're consistent with them. And I know affirmations have brought me where I am in a big degree. Yeah. So just sit with those, breathe with those, and see where your body contracts and says, well, I don't feel safe. Well, then go in there and say, well, how can I bring safety there? How can I help myself here? Right? And it's not as something not to do as something you have to force yourself to believe. Just meet them. And then what happens when you say, I accept myself? What happens there? And to finish this last minute, I want to read a poem from Khalil Gibran. And this poem was also an orientation point. A friend of mine read me this whole entire book. My puppy Pono ate it, but I've had this with me since I was 18, this book. And when he was a puppy, he chewed it apart, but I still have it. And this orientation point also, along with Joseph Campbell, was also working through me my whole life and gave me a frame to understand pain. And a woman spoke, saying, tell us of pain. And he said, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. And you would watch with serenity through the winters of your grief. Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of the unseen. And the cup he brings, though it burns your lips, has been fashioned of the clay which the potter has moistened with his own sacred tears. Take a deep breath. I don't have my flute here. I left them in my studio. But I just invite you to pause with that and take that in. I wish I had my flute here, but I forgot it was in my studio from my sound healing session I gave. But just breathe with that. Reshape your relationship to pain and adversity and see what can happen for you this week. I love myself. I love and accept myself as I am. I'm here to be my own unique self and connect with all the other unique selves. Like my husband says, he says, you look at the superheroes. Superman's not trying to be Batman. Wonder Woman's not trying to be Catwoman. They're all sovereign, individual, complete, unique souls connecting and creating with each other. And that is what I see. We're here to be with each other. So with that, I'm going to let you go, and we'll see you next week. You're not broken. You are always whole. You're just interrupted. And you have the power to correct that interference and interruption every moment with every breath. Love you. Bye.